For nearly 50 years, South Africa was governed by one of the most extreme systems of racial segregation the world has ever seen. A country where a white minority ruled over a black majority, using a complex web of laws to separate, suppress, and control. This was apartheid, a system that dictated where people could live, who they could marry, even which jobs they could hold. But apartheid wasn't just about laws. It was about lives broken, displaced, and denied. In this video, we'll break down how apartheid began, how it was enforced, and how millions of South Africans fought back until it finally fell. This is Apartheid Explained: How South Africa Was Divided for 46 Years. Before apartheid became official policy in 1948, South Africa was already deeply divided. European colonists had arrived in the 1600s, first Dutch, then British. Over centuries, land was taken, wars were fought, and power shifted always away from the native African peoples. By the early 20th century, South Africa was a British colony with a white-dominated government. The 1913 Native Lands Act set the tone, reserving over 80% of land for white ownership and pushing black South Africans into the margins. These divisions laid the foundation for what would become apartheid. But in 1948, that system became law. In 1948, the National Party, a right-wing, Afrikaner-led political group, won the national election. Their platform? Apartheid, an Afrikaans word meaning apartness. What apartheid promised was complete separation of races. What it delivered was institutionalized racism on a massive scale. The first laws came quickly. The Population Registration Act classified everyone by race. The Group Areas Act assigned residential zones by racial category. The Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act criminalized interracial unions. Every South African was now legally labeled and limited by race. White South Africans, just 15% of the population, gained near total control of land, education, voting rights, and the economy. Apartheid wasn't just about where people lived. It controlled how people moved, worked, even who they could love. Passbooks were required for all black South Africans' internal passports that had to be carried at all times. Failing to produce one meant jail. Black children were taught in inferior schools. Hospitals, buses, beaches, even benches were segregated. Resistance was brutally crushed. In 1960, peaceful protesters in Sharpeville were gunned down by police, 69 people killed. The message was clear. The state would use force to protect apartheid, but people fought back. Groups like the African National Congress, ANC, and Pan-Africanist Congress organized protests, boycotts, and civil disobedience. Nelson Mandela, once a peaceful activist, later helped form the ANC's armed wing Umkhonto we Sizwe to sabotage government targets.
There are many people who feel that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and non-violence.
In response, the state cracked down harder. Mandela was imprisoned in 1962 and sentenced to life in 1964. But even behind bars, he became a symbol of hope and resistance. In 1976, thousands of black students in Soweto protested being forced to learn in Afrikaans. Police opened fire. The world watched in horror. By the 1980s, apartheid was under siege. Inside the country, protests, strikes, and uprisings escalated. Outside, global pressure mounted. Countries imposed sanctions. Multinational companies pulled out. The world was isolating South Africa. In 1989, F.W. de Klerk became president. Just a year later, he lifted the ban on the ANC and released Nelson Mandela. What followed was intense negotiation and enormous risk. But after 4 years of talks, in 1994, apartheid officially ended. South Africa held its first free democratic election. Nelson Mandela became president. Apartheid may be over, but its legacy lives on. South Africa remains one of the most unequal countries in the world. Many townships created under apartheid still exist, underfunded and underserved. Generations were denied education, jobs, and land in recovery has been slow. Still, post-apartheid South Africa is also a story of resilience. A Truth and Reconciliation Commission helped the country confront its past. And despite the wounds, millions continue to push for justice, equality, and change. Apartheid was not just a South African story, it's a global warning about what happens when power is hoarded by a few, and what's possible when people demand something better. If you found this video informative, give it a like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to understand this history. Thanks for watching. I'm Rainbow Nation Chronicles, and this was Apartheid Explained.